All join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. You've taken the roll, correct?
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is public comment. Would anyone care to address the village board tonight? Okay, moving along. I don't have anything to report. Can I have a motion to put the consent agenda on the table for consideration?
Make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I would like to remove the one item.
Wait a minute,
What?
we get cut up on the first and seconds.
Motion.
Okay.
I remove the IMO dues from the warrants and vote on that separately.
Which IML
Do
dues, you
well.
said, Matthew?
Matt's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Pat, would you take the vote, please?
And who was the second?
David.
Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kimsey?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Lindhorst?
Yes.
Mel?
Yes.
Stoneman?
Abstain.
Okay. Any questions about the other warrants? Corrections to the minutes? Pat, would you take the vote, please?
Wait a minute, what did you guys just vote on? Did you vote?
We vote to pull the IMO dues off.
And you'll vote to,
Then we'll vote those separately.
Right. Everybody clear? Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kimsey?
Yes.
Boyle?
Yes.
Lindhorst?
Yes.
Mel?
Yes.
Stoneman?
Abstain.
Okay, do we have a motion to put the IML dues on the,
I'll make that motion.
do we have a second?
Second.
Wait a minute, let me get
Oh,
caught up here. I'm taking, I gotta
I was
get.
supposed to vote yes on that.
Okay, discussion.
Okay,
Can't go back now.
Yeah.
Discussions.
who was the first and the second again?
I was the first, I think.
David was
Those guys.
And who was the second, Dave? This was to pay the IML bill
Yes,
separately?
IMO dues.
Got it. Dues, with it. Are we ready to vote? Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kimsey?
Yes.
Boyle?
Yes.
Lindhorst?
Yes.
Mel?
Yes.
Abstain.
You did it right that time, Joe.
Okay,
The other one.
okay, so the IML dues, correct.
Meant to vote yes on.
On Matt's motion.
No, on the consent agenda.
I got it, okay.
Okay, moving on. Old business, the grace period, Ken.
I think this is just.
Is it ready? Oh, wait, is it?
no, it's not,
We're still discussing this in
Yeah.
committee, right? Yeah.
If
so
you guys want to pull it, and then we'll put it on there as the total, I guess, reconfiguration of our utility process.
I mean,
Yeah.
So the old business item one you're gonna pull,
Dave's made a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Are we ready to do the reduction for the
No.
public Hurstbourne?
We're not ready on that either. I think we need to hold off till we go through the selection process for our engineers and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay.
And moving along to new business, the 2016 MFT program. Ken?
Okay. This is a resolution approving projects for the MFP for 2016.
that'll be 6315.
Resolution 6315.
63.
I will make a motion to put this on the
I'll
agenda.
second.
Okay, discussion.
This is the 4-month adjustment.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty clear on this and what we're
Okay.
gonna do.
Pat, would you take the vote, please?
Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kimsey?
Yes.
Boyle?
Yes.
Lindhorst?
Yes.
Mel?
Yes.
And Stoneman?
Yes.
The ordinance on consolidating the administrative assistant position.
This is ordinance, Pat.
47.
Right, this is a ordinance that would actually separate
Yeah.
the two administrative assistant human resource responsibilities. I think we've had discussion. I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Pat, the duties that are being pulled at this time, because you don't have anybody to fill those, have you made provisions to keep those functions fulfilled?
On the human resource thing?
Right, the duties,
I'm not, I was gonna ask you for some guidance. Are you looking to have the, fill that with a person here, or are you thinking possibly a consulting firm to take care of those services?
I
That
think-
email I sent to you.
Yeah, I think with what you sent, it's ideal to do more of a consulting firm. I know,
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah,
too.
otherwise
At least
you're-
at first, we could try it that way and see how it goes.
yeah, I don't think we spend that extra, especially if we need resources elsewhere. I'd rather, when it needed, we pull that in.
Okay, any further discussion? I guess we're voting on the separation. So, Pat, would you take the vote, please?
Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kimsey?
yes.
Boyle?
Yes.
Lindhorst?
Yes.
Mal?
Yes.
And Scrivener.
Yes.
Okay, Iron Bridge Plat 1, public improvements. Ken?
Okay, this is accepting the, in Plat 1 of Iron Bridge Estates, the public utility works. We had discussion. I'll make a motion to put this on the table.
And you feel very
Matt,
comfortable
you're
with
the
this?
second?
Right.
I think Dave or Mark was.
Dave was.
Are you comfortable, Pat?
Yes, yes.
Discussion? Hearing none. Pat, would you take the vote, please?
Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kimsey?
Yes.
Boyle?
Yes.
Lindhorst?
Yes.
Mal?
Yes.
Scrivener.
Yes.
Okay, the TIF agreement and projects. Ken?
This is an ordinance that, well, I'll make a motion to put this on the table.
Second.
This is the ordinance we discussed about the TIF agreement. The funds that we had left over, I believe this has to do with the Goldenrod project, and then also possibly across the street on, what's that, West Main?
Actually, I think we could pick up both the sidewalk projects.
Okay.
With the remaining funds in there, so we can do the sidewalk on the side of Route 4 and also the sidewalk on the west side of Route 4. I have left out the part that was not inside the TIF district, and if we have funds over the next year from MFT or whatever, then we can turn around and try to close that gap there.
And this was about approximately $350,000 worth of
I think-
improvements.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Phelan, did you have a comment on, I guess, what kind of level of commitment we have to make for this, I guess, the TIF projects, or how specific we have to?
Well, basically, the reason that we're doing this now is, I mean, as you're aware, the estimated termination date for your TIF is November 24th. Okay? So, basically, by that date, or at least reasonably close to that date, there's a need to identify any future projects, basically to earmark those funds for those TIF projects, set out what they are. You know, if there are already agreements in place, that's, you know, that's fine. If there are dates, whatever. You don't have to be quite that specific, because I realize that you're actually talking about the next year, because the final year of the funds that we'll be capturing from that, since they're collected in arrears, will be next year. So there's certainly some estimation that's involved in, you know, how much will actually be available in the fund. And that's why, as you go through here, the dollar amounts that are identified, you know, say to the extent that the TIF funds are available, you know, they'll be used for these projects up to, you know, or not to exceed a certain amount. Because, you know, like I say, we don't know exactly what the fund balance will be. So the process of going through and identifying these now is a result of basically the estimated ending date of the TIF district itself.
But
I
as
think
far as,
Mark's question
yeah,
is-
as far as being specific to this project, what kind of wiggle room do we have in the event that we see that we might want to earmark these funds for a different project?
I think you can still do that. I think the further removed you get away from what your estimated termination date was, being November 24th, I would say the more challengeable it becomes, we'll put it that way, okay? There's some gray room in there in how the courts would view that, because it is an estimation. They're not going to require you to have, everything set on that date.
But if we were to significantly change the scope of this project, would probably be, I guess, in your words, challengeable.
It's possible. It would be, if you're going to change something within the scope of these three projects, I don't think that would be a problem. And it's not to say that it would necessarily be improper or somehow unlawful to add a project or change a project. We realize we have more money than we thought we had, or, this project didn't cost as much as we thought it would. So now we have, these other monies available to us. So now we'd like to do, this other project over here. I do think you could probably still do that.
Mark, I think, am I wrong? It can only be a municipal or a public project. It can't be a private project, correct? We couldn't add a private project going into the last year of...
The only way that you would, obviously the only way that you'd be able to do that is if it were some sort of direct reimbursement.
Well, yeah,
type of
and
agreement.
that was gonna be the question, is,
Right.
let's say, we approve this right now, we approve this sidewalk stuff, and then in January, we decide we wanna do a facade reimbursement program to our businesses. Can we do that?
As long as the facade reimbursement program is part of your initial TIF ordinance, that you have the facade reimbursement, I assume you do.
It's not.
No,
It's not?
No.
specific.
Okay. Then we couldn't do that, because we would be past the time to be able to amend that and to add that. So we would
I
have-
think what Mark's really asking is if we change our mind on these two sidewalk projects and want to spend it on something else in the TIF district, is that okay to do?
I think you can still do that. I really
But
do.
for tonight's purposes, we need to have something on the books, right?
Right, that's why we're identifying these, because really, the further away you get from your estimated termination date, the more you're getting into uncharted waters, basically. And you don't really want to be the test case out there, just say, can we change something 8 months after our
Well, so I
estimated
suppose
termination date?
then, if there's some interest in changing something and spending the money elsewhere, we probably need to get it done before the first.
Sooner rather than
year.
later would be better, yes.
So is everybody okay passing this with that understanding?
Yeah, I'm good with that, and I appreciate the clarification, and I know I expressed my concern about us knowing about this excess funds, at last minute, but if we do have some wiggle room, I'd be more comfortable. And like I said, I'm all in favor of repairing the sidewalks. It just was concerning to me that this happened in the 11th hour, but I'm okay with this.
Okay. Pat, would you take the vote, please?
Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kinsey? Yes. Coyle?
Yes.
Lindhorst?
Abstain.
You said abstain? Mal?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Okay. Mendenhall letter of credit.
All right, this is a resolution releasing Mendenhall, their letter of credit on the public building improvement that they made. I believe it's in the amount of $50,000. I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Discussion.
Do we have any discussion? Pat, would you take the vote, please?
Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kinsey?
Yes.
Ball?
Yes.
Lindhorst?
Yes.
Mal?
Yes.
And Stone?
Yes.
So okay, let's do 7 and 8, and then we can have, we're moving fast, so, Craig Olson appointment.
Yeah, this is a Resolution appointing Craig Olson to the Public Property and Recreation Committee. I'll make a motion to put that on the table.
I'll second.
Discussion. Pat, would you take the vote, please?
Trustee Clayton?
Yes.
Kinsey?
Yes.
Wall?
Yes.
Van Horst?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
And Storm.
Yes.
Okay, so the 2016 meeting schedule.
I put that on there because I've been hearing rumors about it, and I just thought it needed to be on there. Trustee Paul told me that you'll be talking about it at the committee meeting next week.
Next
Okay.
week, I think we'll try and
Because
finalize.
we need to pass an ordinance setting our calendar 2016 schedule by the next board meeting.
Okay, we'll discuss it.
Yeah, we'll just
Committee
pass
of
it
the
to
whole.
committee.
Let's see, Pat, do you have a long report or anything to report?
We had leak detection crews done, 16 leaks. They expect to get the report back to me next week. The biggest leak we haven't repaired yet. We were afraid that it would initiate a pretty good sized boil order for an area, so we didn't want to do that Thanksgiving week. So starting next week, we'll fix that one.
Is there any way to break it up so that it will be less impactful?
All depends. I'm not exactly sure where it's at. The guys were telling me that it's the biggest leak that they found. Like I said, the very first one, we made enough back off bid in 1 year to pay for the service, so we should be in pretty good shape.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, in front of you is a large packet of applicants for the police chief position, 31 applicants that we have. I also put in a spreadsheet with their name, email, phone number, and where they live. We had one person not put down where they live, and one person didn't give us an email. Other than that, there's 31.
Okay. Now we'll do the risk management presentations. How do you want to handle it?
Because with IML, RMA being our risk carrier currently, and I work for the IML, and IML is a sponsor of IML, RMA, I will be taking myself out of the process of selecting our insurance carrier.
But and to make it clear, in the structure, right now, IML and RMA are
Two separate
entities, and RMA is a risk pool as opposed to an insurance company. It's a government risk pool. So, who do you want to hear from first? Or?
Are all three of the firms here? We had Insurance Partners, IML, RMA, and Coup Insurance. So who you?
Susie, do you want to go first?
They can go first, it doesn't matter, I'm the fine.
So we don't have anybody here from Insurance Partners? Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I know you're on the clock.
Much better. Do I need to?
Eight minutes to make your presentation.
No, Jeff and I.
It's like graph day.
This is Jeff Weber, IPMG, one of our partners. They run a public risk pool called CRTM. I have to watch myself because we're in an acronym heavy industry. I've been doing this 25 years, so I'll have to clarify my terms. But anyways, thank you for allowing us to come in and just speak with you in regards to the RFP for the Village of Chatham's Risk Fund. What I thought I'd do is, there's a lot of information in that book, so I think what I'll do is kind of hit some of the highlights and get to some of the points that you guys want to hear about. I'll start by first giving you an overview. We have a strategic partnership with Mesro Financial in Chicago. McCoo Insurance and Mesro joined forces back in 2013 to form one of the largest public entity writers in the Midwest, and then without a doubt in the state of Illinois, insuring in excess of $50 billion in property coverage. We've got, within the team for public risk alone, there are 20 dedicated people there of various strengths as far as loss control, risk managers. So the different kind of entities that we insure, which are over 300 here in the state of Illinois, can range from anything from cities to counties to housing authorities, museums, school districts. The state of Illinois, we're the master underwriter for the state of Illinois' insurance that goes out to the public. Transit authorities, universities, venues, villages, cities, even zoos. We're also active in many of the trade groups, including the RINS, which is the Risk Insurance Management Society. I do some speaking at those engagements throughout the course of the year. The people that head up, I'm Vice President of COO here in Springfield. My counterpart, Dana Townsend, would be the other party to this. Dan Mackey, who would have been with us tonight, couldn't make it down, so if we do go forward, you'll see him at a point in the future. And then next page here you'll see is just a small sampling of the entities in which we insure. So it shows the diversity of what we do as far as risk, but it also illustrates to you the number of cities in the state of Illinois, including the city of Springfield, which we just joined a partnership with here recently, as well as city of Peoria property up there. So the next few pages after this one here just gives you, what we put together was some ideas or different scenarios of areas in which we help communities as far as the transfer list, the dollar savings, and stuff like that. So I won't get too deep in that. Page 2.1. This is what we do. We do a market analysis, and typically we usually go about 6 months out with our clients and trying to do a full market survey. But because of the leverage of the premiums that we drive with some of the carriers, we're able to get some quick turnaround time with some of them. And one of them, which Jeff's going to talk a little bit more because he's directly involved with them, is ICRMT, which is the Illinois County Risk Management Trust Fund, similar to the IML's program. And then we also went to Illinois Public Risk Fund, who's just a work comp carrier only writer here in Illinois, and they also are a public fund. And the reason is, from a dollar standpoint, both of them are very competent in the underwriting of public risk here in the state of Illinois, and they're two of the market leaders here in the state of Illinois. The joint pages, what we did was we transferred some of your loss information that was given to us to just kind of encapsulate what it looked like over the last 5 years. It helps us develop trend. Page 3.1, this one here, basically giving you a little breakdown comparison of what we believe you're currently paying on your expiration based on the information given to us, and then what we have provided as a comparative quote. Now, when I say comparative, most of these things are similar, but because of the complexities of them, there are some differences. So we try to put it closest together. Some ways you guys benefit on some of the programs that we develop and design. Jeff's going to go a little bit more into that here in just a few minutes. It's funny, I was talking with one of the partners today, and we're looking at this piece here. We've been doing this a long time, and when we look at this, it sometimes looks like trying to teach somebody Spanish in a real quick period of time. So we're going to make this in a little bit of a simpler fashion to understand here. But what it is, that first page is kind of what your coverages are right now in an illustrative fashion, and then the second one is what we're proposing here, and then the different levels of limits. And Jeff, you want to go a little bit more into detail on that?
Sure.
Talking about the program. This is Jeff Weber.
Yeah, great. And thank you all for having us and the opportunity to quote your insurance today. I'm with Illinois County's Risk Management Trust, and just a little background on us. We've been insuring public entities in Illinois since 1983. So over 30 years we've been in this business. All we do is insure public entities in Illinois. So similar to IML, we specialize in this area. So currently we have over 300 members. over 100 million in assets, over 60 million in premium. So financially, we are a strong program. One of the unique things about our program is that we invest a tremendous amount of money into our services and into the services that we give back to you folks. But the page that what you folks are looking at right now just overviews the coverages that you have. So basically, what we're providing for you in the general liability sense is $8 million of coverage. Okay? Total of $8 million. Then on the law enforcement, you have another $8 million of coverage. And just real quickly, back to the general liability, and I'm not sure if you're going to go into this later about some other things, or just want me to go over general liability.
Let's just give just a quick overview what these lines of coverages mean.
Yeah, so general liability, of course, is slips and falls, just general lawsuits or liability issues that you're going to encounter. Law enforcement is going to be, just like it says, against your law enforcement personnel. The next item is basically automobile liability is $8 million. So you kind of see the theme here. All the coverage that we're going to be giving today is $8 million. The next item that we have is the public officials, which is your most important coverage, and this is protecting you in the decisions you make as a board. And we have $8 million of coverage, which is usually quite significant in terms of higher than most of our competition out there. So we're giving $8 million in terms of if you folks get sued for the decisions that you make on this board or as this board. We're also covering $8 million for employment practices and sexual harassment, wrongful termination issues. So basically, we're giving you $8 million for all of these items. Then we have full building and contents limit based on the building limits that we were giving. So we have a full building and contents limit, contents, equipment breakdown, meal and marine. So everything that you currently gave us the quote off of, we are insuring up to those amounts. Vehicles, we insure on all your vehicles that you folks gave us. Employee dishonesty on the crime coverage, we're covering you folks for $100,000, which is usually going to be significantly higher than what you currently have. So not only is it employee dishonesty, it's theft of your money and securities, it's also forgeries, it's also computer fraud, and it's also wire transfer, it's also transfer fraud. So if someone hacks into your banking account and transferred money out, I was just at a city this morning that had 2 wire transfer frauds for $100,000. Okay, and this is a unique coverage of ours that we're covering at this point, so it's very important to have that limit. So they had 500,000, so they had enough limit, so that's something important when we look at what we have. And I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, it's interesting. So a couple of things I want to point out, and as we go visit communities and talk to them, one of the common things I see, or two actually, one is valuation, the issue of valuation. And as I was looking through the schedule, a couple of things jump out. Like for example, the elevator tank out there in the middle of town, I think you're currently insured about $500,000. If you just take what the estimates are to replace a tank like that, if you just factor $1.25 to $1.50 a gallon, you're looking at somewhere between $900 to $1.1, $1.2 million. That might be even on the conservative side. I bring this up because I know we learned like what happened in Chatham, Missouri, with some of these larger events. We as an agency adjusted over $10 million of claims back in March of 2006 on the west side of Springfield. We insure a lot of those walls. So we were able to really decipher what valuation really meant. But if the expectation was that was going to, going back to the water tank, if that were to replace that whole thing, you would fall short of that, because there's a provision in your policy when you read it, it gives you a 1.3 factor. In other words, $650,000 based on what you have insured for now. And I bring that up only because it's, no fault of the community or anything like that, but when you deal with smaller entities, you don't have the people power to be able to decipher what all this means. So often it comes back to us at the brokerage side to help bring those services to the table, people that are professional appraisers to help you understand what is the proper valuation. And they're just going to jump into a little bit of that with ICRMT and what they do.
And this is very common that we see, especially in cities and villages, about being underinsured on your property values. And so one thing that we have started to do years ago is that we have hired an independent third-party professional property appraisal firm. I'm sure that you folks get approached all the time from people saying, hey, pay us 25 grand, we'll come out and we'll appraise all your properties for you, making sure that you're insured properly. Well, in our program, we do that at no cost to you. We do that free to you folks. We'll come in with a third party, they're going to appraise all your buildings and make sure that the values that you're insuring for is actually what it's going to cost to build this building back up. Because 3 people look bad if this building goes down and we have it insured for $1 million, it's really $2 million. You folks are gonna be in the paper telling people we don't have enough money to rebuild, okay? NACU's gonna be in the paper because they're their insurance agent, and then we're gonna be in the paper for not insuring properly. So we wanna make sure that you folks are properly insured. So that's an advantage of our program, that we're gonna come in and do a professional property appraisal to make sure if a building goes down, that we're gonna give you folks enough money to rebuild that building.
Along the lines of general liability coverage and stuff like that, you know, we have sub-broker agreement, or subcontractor agreements, having the proper risk transfer. We talk a lot about this with our, not only our normal clients, but also our public entity clients. Anytime you have somebody coming in doing work for you, whether it's a contractor or subcontractor relationship, not only getting the certificates of insurance, but making sure the proper verbiage is putting in, additional insured clauses, waivers, subrogations, and you guys as attorneys know all about that, right? So what it's doing is, it's basically placing the liability where the liability belongs in the event of a subcontractor not, you know, fulfilling what they're supposed to be doing as far as if there was property damage as a result or a bodily injury. So it doesn't come back on the village's insurance, it first goes through theirs, and then the village is defended through their coverage first and foremost. I had a large public entity here not too long ago that has large construction projects going on. And in that process, we had the general contractor who had all the subs working for him. Because of the language we put in place, there was an incident where a hole was open, it never was properly barricaded by the end of the night. Well, the local, the guy that does the night security ends up walking, falling into, it's about a 4-foot hole. Fortunately, not too deep, but enough to really tear his arm up and stuff. So it becomes a work comp claim to that entity. So at the end of the day, and actually I should back up a little bit, that was a subcontracted night watchman. So what happened was his work comp carrier had to pay the claim. Well, obviously they're going to go back after the entity that they were contracted to as well as the contractor. The entity is protected because there was a waiver of subrogation put into place saying we're not going to have any shared responsibility. So it protected our entity, and it really placed it back over to the general contractor who was actually liable for the event. So those are the things that happen. And again, in the world of putting contracts together and stuff like that, one of the things we do is we do the review of the insurance language and help build that in and provide the language. Of course, reviewed by your attorneys. Let's talk just a little bit about a couple of additional services that's provided by the ICRMT. This is probably the most important part, I think, in what they bring to the table. And Jim, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
This is under this part here. So before we get into the IPMG piece, which we're not going to actually go into tonight to save you that.
Yeah, so as you can see, I'm just going to mainly hit on this value page. These people are, like I said before, we invest a lot of money into our services. And people always say, well, Jeff, what's that mean? What's that mean for dollar amounts? And even though it's hard to do, we try to put a dollar amount on there. But I think what you're going to get is that you're going to get what we have in terms of our risk managers or loss control people. The people come out here, all they do is operate in the ICRMT, and they specialize in this area. And these folks operate from the tip of the state down to the southern tip. But you guys are going to have one loss control person that you can constantly call. Doesn't matter what department you can call these folks for risk management services. And they can help you out with policies, with your EMTs in terms of back safety, in terms of liability issues. So they're going to be out here meeting with your department heads and seeing what you're doing. And if you're doing good things, they're going to try to make them better. If you're doing things that aren't so good, they're going to make them good. So they're really going to be specializing when they look in. So when they walk into the street department, walk into the EMT, it's not going to be their first rodeo. They've been there before. The next thing that's really important is that law enforcement risk management. Right now is everything that's going on with law enforcement in the country. Law enforcement liability is a huge issue. We're seeing things skyrocket. We're seeing juries give bigger awards than they ever have been. So what we did is we went out and hired a third-party risk manager out of Indianapolis. And all these folks do is law enforcement risk management for law enforcement. So they're going to be able to come in and give your new chief of police all the policy procedures he needs. so he doesn't have to
So
go
if they
out there.
come in and see something completely wrong in department, is there gonna be an additional fee, or do they set us
No,
up?
there's gonna be additional
Okay.
fee, we're not coming in and help you solve that problem. So they're gonna come in and say, you guys don't have policy procedures, or you don't have a policy on the new medical marijuana, or you don't have a policy on the new strip search law in Illinois. Okay, conceal and carry, what's, your policy? So they're gonna come in and help you guys and help your chief. It's not a combative relationship, it's a helpful relationship. And I can tell you, there's chief of police, we were just at one over at Leroy, and he stood up in that meeting and wrote letters saying that this saved his budget $20,000, $30,000 a year, because not only are we coming in and helping with policy procedures, but we're also doing training of your officers, not only on site, but also online. So you guys are a little bit fortunate because you're so close to Springfield, the mobile training units are so close. But instead of sending guys away for 2 days for training, now you can maybe do online training or have someone else come in and do the training. You still want to utilize mobile training units, but this is something that we can do to help you folks out, especially it sounds like you might be getting a new chief. It's really going to be important for him to have these resources. So he gets updates, he says, hey, I need policies on this, I need training on that, what's happening with this, what are we supposed to do with the new medical marijuana, what can we do, not do? These are all things that are coming down Illinois. It's very important to be on top of, unlawful arrest, things like that. So this is a huge advantage that we have these folks, and all they do is law enforcement. And I can tell you, whoever your new chief is, when you tell who this is, PATC, he will know these folks, because they actually do training for the state of Illinois, for the mobile training unit. So these guys are especially important to you folks. We already talked about the property appraisal, that company CBiz, they're gonna come in and do professional property appraisal. You'll get a book about this thick that will come out. We put that value there, but I can tell you that I know cities that have bought this from other carriers before we've come in, and they spend anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 to have this done. So again, you kind of get to think. The next big thing is our open door legal, that you guys have full access, plus your city attorney has full access to our attorneys. And our attorneys do not work for insurance program managers or do not work for ICRMT. They're actually the attorneys that represent you folks in court. So they're in court day in or day out. So when you call them an employment practices issue or about firing someone, you're talking to the person that when you get sued is going to defend you in court, okay? So they can tell you, hey, don't fire them, this, and this, before you fire them. So when you do get fired, she's in the best position to protect you in the court. Or she'll say, well, you can't fire me for that reason, that's an ADA violation. So I can tell you, or you're having coffee at the coffee shop and you hear someone complaining about, well, you know what they did with this or that, I'm going to sue them. You can contact our people and get their legal advice. Golf carts are...
That would be something too where, sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, go ahead.
That's what I do.
Please do. I got to take a break from talking.
So, for example, if our, management or leadership team would need more HR employee handbook type training, that would be something you guys would provide if you didn't see it?
Absolutely. So one thing, it's down the list a little bit of employee handbooks. If you'll give us your employee handbook, especially if it hasn't been updated in a long time, they will review your employee handbook and give you back suggestions. So for example, if you guys haven't talked about it, what are you doing with medical marijuana? What's your policy going to be on that? What's your policy for concealed carry? What are you doing on the ADA, FMLA, military leave? So they're going to look at all that for you and look at your deal and say, this is what you need to update and give you suggestions. You always want to keep your city attorney involved so he can review things, but these folks are going to be a resource for you. So again, for example, if you are looking like FOIA, one of the advantages of our program is that we do cover FOIA and Open Meetings Act violations. As far as I know, we're one of the few programs, if not the only program that's covering those things. So if the newspaper, sues you folks for Open Meetings Act or FOIA, we will come in and defend you. But you can always call our people instead of waiting for the Attorney General and say, hey, I got this nuisance FOIA person that keeps FOIAing everything. What do you think I can do? Or do you think this is something I need to FOIA? And they can help you out. So as you can tell, it's a long list of what you guys folks can call them on. And we want you to call them. They cost us money, but if calling them prevents one claim a year, it's paid for itself. Okay? So it's a little selfish on our part. It's a little selfish on the police part because when you guys are doing things right, it makes their job easier when they go to court to defend you. So that's the first thing people call me, hey Jeff, we got employment practices. Kind of my first question is, well, did you call our attorneys? If they say no, I cringe because I know it's going to cost us. Okay, so that's a huge advantage to our program. I can tell you, everybody that's with us raves about it. And then the last thing is employee handbook, okay? That's big. You know, again, our claims people specialize. All they do is handle this program. Our risk managers specialize. Our law enforcement specialize. Our attorneys specialize. So we have an attorney that handles law enforcement, one that has employment practices, one that handles open meetings act. So I can sit up here and tell you great things about our program, which I think they are, but you know, we keep over 95% of our members. Okay, we're a growing program even on top of that, and I think that says a lot. When we keep 95% of our members and we keep growing, and that we're not always the cheapest out there, but because of our service, people stay with us year in and year out because of that.
So Jeff represents the company, and that's why I brought here just to go into more of the detail. But they're not the only ones that are involved as far as what we proposed on the insurance. We use Illinois Public Risk Fund for the workers' comp. They were a better option as far as a premium standpoint, and you'll see that in the comparison. Again, another risk fund, probably the largest entity in Illinois to insure public risk for workers' comp. That's all they do. Very sound financially. A couple of uniquenesses that they pick up is volunteer compensation. In other words, you have a roster of volunteers. Sometimes you'll look into these policies and find out after you've done an event. And I think you had a great example in regard to a community where a doctor...
We actually had a community not far away from here that the volunteer was painting a gazebo for the village and fell off the ladder, and he was a doctor and hurt himself. And we were able to step in, since we cover volunteers right away, and cover that folk, and he never got attorney because we took care of him right away, and we covered him under volunteer coverage. And we also cover our volunteers also under the liability. So if one of your volunteers is out there doing whatever they're doing and they get sued for something they do working for the village, we also cover that volunteers, because we all know how hard it is to get volunteers to help out in terms of no matter what that event is. And so we want to make sure that we're protecting them, so you guys can keep having volunteers so they'll know, hey, you know, the city or the village, they take care of me, I'm going to be here. So that's an important thing to have that coverage year in and year out. And you know, the only thing, I know we're taking a lot of time, but I'd just like to point out a few advantages we think ICRMT has. One is under our general liability, we cover failure to supply for all your departments. So for your electrical department, for your water department. So if you can't get electricity out to someone and it's your fault, you can't get electricity to a house, and that person dies because they can't get heat, or their monitor goes off, whatever it might be, and they sue you for that, that's failure to supply. And we will cover you folks for that. Same thing if it's a water. If you can't get water to someone and it's your fault and they die, we will cover for you. That's a big advantage for us. As I mentioned earlier, we cover FOIA and Open Meetings Act violations. We also cover non-monetary violations, meaning that if you folks get sued and they're not asking for money, if they don't ask for money, it's not an insurance claim. Okay, so people will say, well, when they come back and ask for money, come get us. But we will step in and cover you folks right away. So a lot of EEOC complaints, a lot of EEOC filings and claims, they're not asking for money, they're asking for their job back. We will step in and protect you. Okay, so there's a lot of advantages like that we do. We also do wage reimbursement. A lot of people don't cover wage reimbursement when it comes to that. We do cover that wage reimbursement for you, so.
Yeah, and that's one thing we see across the board is when you deal with employment practices and stuff like that, it's probably the biggest claim. Any violation of Title VI, the defense of that. And one thing we want to preface too, within this, you know, there are deductibles that we use pretty much across the board, $5,000 deductible on all lines. So I just wanted to make sure that's clarified. So I'll open up to any questions. There's a lot thrown at you in a short period of time. But.
Any questions, board members?
You built this off the existing property valuations?
Yeah.
The same ones that have used by?
Comparatively.
Comparatively the same ones?
Same ones.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we, if you look in there, the property schedule, that's why we showed that, so you can see what you currently have. That's what we used.
Then on an average annual basis, how much are you seeing your premiums increase for your pool?
Well, it ranges depending, it really depends on where your losses are. Our average increase this year was under 5%, but we had people taking 30% decreases. We had some people that had some losses that took a higher increase.
Big budget.
The average is less than
Do
five.
you rate each individual, or each member individually, or do you rate
We-
the entire risk pool as one?
Both. We have our, just like an insurance company, just like State Farm looks at their entire auto book and says, okay, if you're 18-year-old males, we need to take an increase, and then they come down and look at everyone individual. So we look at ICRMT as a group and say, okay, as an ICRMT group, you need to take a 5% increase. But then we come down and look at you folks individually and see what your losses are. And if your losses are good, then maybe you don't deserve a 5% increase. Maybe you deserve a decrease. Maybe your work comp losses have improved, maybe your mod has gone down. So now, we don't have a comp, but now your price goes down. So we look at everybody individually, but we have to have a starting point for everybody.
Yeah, 2 points, I want to make sure, I need to clarify this. Workers' comp, the proposal we give, that's fixed dollar. So currently, you're under a high-low retro plan. So what they do is they pick a middle point, so your upside savings is 15%, your downside whack is as much as 30%, depending on where you fall in your loss pick. It's a little bit more of a complicated animal.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That's probably a key.
On our property casualty premium, thank you, that is a set premium. So moving forward, no matter what you do, as long as, you can add buildings up to $1 million. You can add 10 autos up to $500,000 at no cost to you. Your price will not go up during the policy period. Okay, so the price I'm showing you will not increase, no matter if you add autos or add buildings up to that certain dollar amount. We do that for two reasons. One, so you can have liability coverage. Okay, the second reason is that you won't get a $200, $300, $400 bill in your budget. But also, if you guys have $1 million of claims, I'm not going to come back for this year and charge you more.
So within the first year, when you send in your professionals to do an appraisal on all the property and equipment, as long as that property and equipment appraisal is within $1 million, this price is still the same price?
That's new property, so if you had new property. The property appraisal guys come out, and we're going to come out here and meet with you folks and go over the property appraisal and say, okay, this is what you're insured for, and this is what it said insured should be insured. And then we'll talk about what you guys want to insure.
So in the case of these evaluations being deemed inappropriate, there's going to be an increase or decrease?
That's correct.
Depending on which one it is?
Yeah.
Correct.
And so, the reason we want to make sure of that, because, when I look at this, I think there's like an aggregate total of 12 million in property I think you guys have. So your mind might be, well, something happens, let's take the water tower or this building here, the expectation might be that, oh yeah, well, we're well within that limit. But when you read in the provision of the policy, it's based on what that individual piece is insured for, and then there's a 1.3 factor on top of it, the maximum, okay? So it's not what we in our industry call the true blanket value. I have a large entity where we do, and I use a different carrier, we do a full blanket, so that what it does give you is variance if something were not to be properly insured. The other thing, accessibility.
Oh yeah, even though we are a pool of trust program, our program is non-assessable. So we can't come back after the fact because the program had a bad year and charge you more money. So that's very unique in terms of a trust program. All other trust programs are assessable. So we are not accessible. We can't come back and ask you for more money. The other item, just real quick, is we are including terrorism. If you being so close to the state capitol, that's very important. So that is covered. Also, special events. Any special event, as long as it's not excluded under the policy, will be covered at no additional charge. Okay. So if the team wins state, you want to hold a parade for them, or they want to hold a fundraiser for someone that has cancer, we're going to cover that for you at no additional charge, as long as it's not like a demolition derby, something that's excluded under the policy. And then liquor liability too. If you guys ever get into a fundraiser that you're actually serving, or you have a vendor that comes in and serving alcohol, we are automatically going to cover your liquor liability too. So we have that also.
Well, would you like to make one last point?
I know.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Pat,
Oh.
do you have any questions, Pat, in regard, from your standpoint on it?
No, but I learned an awful lot tonight.
We're going to make a regurgitate. I think they're short.
My last thing, now, I know my last thing is that our program, we feel is very, very important to have agents. And so we only work with agents having an agent that's looking out for your benefit, that if something, he's the one that's protecting you guys and looking out for your best interest. So if he feels that something is going wrong with ICRMT or something with IPRF isn't right, he can go out and find other people for you. Or if you have claims problem, premium issues, problems, it's out of your hair and it's on his hair.
Well, yeah, and I'll state this, because of our combined strength of Mesro, it's not just me. I mean, I've got a team of 20 people involved. Again, we deal everything from, big cities to transit authorities to rail authorities. So there is a lot of intellectual capital there, and there's a lot of idea sharing. We have a lot on staff. So that's probably the biggest benefit. Because of the volume of premium we drive with some of these carriers, we're in a good position to be able to heavily negotiate pricing as well as terms and coverages. And those are probably the most three important things, and that's probably what our biggest value is to a community or to any city or anything like that. So that's probably the...
Okay.
That's the end.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I know, yes, there's a lot to say.
I know the chief's not here. Do you have any issue for the police department, any questions or anything? JR, not meaning to put you on the spot, I know you're just here watching, but in regards to training or things like that?
No, I like a lot of the things that they said. We just went through a policy thing, so it'd be nice to have somebody take a look at it and see where we're at. I know we're still refining, polishing things up. There are a lot of things that are coming down this year that we don't have policies on because they have not taken effect yet. But no, I kind of like that idea.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Susie?
This insurance stuff is very exciting, isn't it? I'm sure you can't wait for this to be over, right?
Thank you.
I see some familiar faces and some new people as well. Well, thank you for having me as well. It's good to be together. My name is Susie James, and I am with the IML RMA. I started with that program in 1999, and I am a membership specialist. And we have insured the village of Chatham since 1987. So we appreciate your membership. And this booklet is designed to go through a little bit of history and then go into your detailed coverage. I'm not going to take a long time, but I am going to point out some differences and some benefits of the IML RMA. So on page one of the main things is that we only write municipalities. We don't write counties. We don't write park districts, fire districts, anything like that. Our program has been in place since 1981, and we feel like we really specialize in covering municipalities in the state of Illinois. We are non-for-profit. I do have my producer's license. I do not make a commission. That's part of what the savings is. I basically act as your agent. And through most of the last many years, Jill Butler has been your contact person, the risk management coordinator. She's done a fine job in coordinating all of the services that we do, and we'll get into that in a little more detail later. On page two, as I said, we started the program in 1981. We started with just 48 members, and now we've grown to nearly 650 members. We really focus on covering small to medium-sized cities and around the lower population up to around 34,000. On page three, we didn't list all 600 plus members, but the surrounding counties, the municipalities in those counties, so if you look at Sangamon County, we're covering all of those other municipalities surrounding you. I'm sure those look familiar to you as well. All right, so getting into the coverage part of what we're covering you for, this is a package program. As they noted that they put you with a different company for work comp and a different company for property and liability. We have to write the whole package, so we're covering you for both work comp, property, and liability all together. So basically everything except for your health insurance. Some of the big points here on the property is our deductible for property is only $500. So that's going to be a big difference going from only $500 to $5,000 for a deductible. For our property appraisals, we do those ourselves. We've been trained for and use Marshall, Beck & Swift, which is a premier building evaluator for buildings themselves. There are some locations, such as the water tower, sewer plants, and water plants that we call valued by member, that we trust the city based upon their engineering and criteria for that location. We allow you to put a dollar amount on those. The next page, page 5, we're covering all of your portable equipment, your backhoes, mowers, things like that. Again, the deductible is only $500. Crime coverage, as Jeff pointed out, our crime coverage is $100,000, and there's a $500 deductible on that as well. General liability, page 7. For all of our liabilities, there is a $0 deductible. It's first dollar coverage. So if you're being sued, it's first dollar coverage. And again, for the limits there in the middle of the page is $8 million per occurrence with a $16 million aggregate. So that's quite a lot of coverage for, again, no deductibles as well. Page 8, public officials liability. This protects you as the board if you're sued. The limits there are $2.5 million with an aggregate of 8. A difference here is all of our coverages are on an occurrence basis, and their coverage in this line is on a claims made basis. So the claim has to be made while you're with them. If you have an occurrence policy, the claim just had to occur when you're with the insurance company. Page 9. Cyber liability is a new coverage we started a couple years ago. The limit here is $100,000. As more and more municipalities are taking credit card payments for utility payments online, things like that, this will come into play. The next page, page 10, again, stop me if you want. I'm going to plow through this because you tend to have fast meetings, I can tell, right? On page 10 is the auto coverage. Is that typical or just tonight? Because it's a holiday. Just tonight, huh? Usually it takes a lot longer? Well, I came to the right meeting, didn't I? So I feel like I have to move just like that, right? Okay, page 10. Auto liability is $8 million. Only a $500 deductible for auto physical damage and collision. So if your police car hits a deer, it's $500. And auto liability, again, is $0 deductible. Work comp is statutory. It's pretty much the same across the board. We do not do payroll audits, which means if someone overestimated your payroll, we don't give money back. If you underestimated your payroll, we don't send you another bill. We tend to not exchange money throughout the year whatsoever. Okay, page 12, we're also covering your bonds. Page 13, ICRT talked about covering volunteers. We don't automatically cover volunteers under work comp because we feel like the work comp, that's calculated by payroll, and there's no payroll for volunteers. But we do have an accident program for them that can be, if you utilize volunteers a lot. Page 13, the bottom of page 13 talks about your equipment breakdown, and that was included in our quote. Page 14 talks a little bit about myself and then Jim Clausen. We've done several things this year. We met with Shane and Jill and constructed a written confined space program. That's one of the things that was needed under Illinois Department of Labor, and that was one thing that was not done, so we sat down and got that written out. Page 16, just samples of some services that we have been providing. Vern and both Jill have been signing employees up for a lot of our online training because there are certain requirements that have needed to get in. While certainly our loss control guy does hands-on training, the village of Chatham has really been utilizing our online training resources as well. Okay, page 18, just more services statistics that I won't get into. Page 19, our claim offices. Doesn't really matter because all the claims have been submitted online, and she checks the claims online. It's very user-friendly, and when a claim is submitted, then a claim adjuster is assigned and they take it from there.
Quick question.
Yes. I feel like I'm really speaking.
Why-
Thank you for slowing me down.
Pretty bait, why Eureka?
Why Eureka?
I mean, I've been to Eureka, I'm just wondering why Eureka was chosen as.
There's no rhyme or reason. It's in the middle of the state, and there happens to be a good place for an office there, so yeah.
Okay.
Eureka, there you go. All right, page 20 are some testimonials from members in the IML RMA. And then page 21, typical exclusions. And then page 22, yes, we are a self-insured pool in the state of Illinois, which means we are accessible. However, since 1981, we have never had an assessment back to a member, and that is mostly due to page 22. We purchased reinsurance to protect the pool from catastrophic events. So our reinsurance carrier for liability is Lexington. Our reinsurance carrier for work comp is Safety National, and for property it's Lloyd's of London. And that has always protected the pool from those large losses. And any questions on that? You're pondering.
I'll let you finish.
Okay. Okay, so all that for what you really wanted to know is on page 23. It has a summary of the cost for all of the coverages, and then an optional part for min-max, which is a lower amount. As I told you, you've been with the RMA since 1987, but since 2005, the last 10 years, you've been in what we call a min-max program. And so, which enables you to save money up front with the potential of paying more for claims later on. So this is a good 10-year history. Obviously, you had higher claims in 2007, 2008, 2009. But for the last 6 years after that, your claims have been much lower and more controlled. So this kind of gives you a tool to use to analyze whether to take the lower amount, which on page 24 goes into a little further detail. It gives you the guaranteed amount minus the reinsurance and administrative costs to get your loss fund. Are you following me on the last page? And then you take the loss fund, add back in the fixed costs to get the minimum contribution. And then if your claims go over the loss fund, you could pay dollar for dollar. And it's better shown on this graph that I gave you. So for the last 10 years, you've chosen the min-max part, and 3 out of the 10 you paid a little bit more, but 7 of those years you saved significant amount of money. So does that make sense?
Sounds like a gamble.
It is a gamble. We only offer this program for members who their contribution is greater than $100,000, so it's not for everyone. But it gives you an incentive to save a little bit of money up front with the potential of paying just a little bit more if your claims go over your loss fund. So you're trending well is the good part, right?
So which numbers are maximum loss fund in this proposal?
The max would be in the box on the maximum contribution.
Not the contribution, the maximum
So that's
loss.
We'd have to meet.
the max loss. If your claims are in between the 121 and 185. So if on this graph, getting away from the proposal, you paid the in-between port lines, and then we paid after that. So you don't have an unlimited liability there. It's just a certain section that if your claims are in that amount, in that range.
So from 121 to 243, we're paying that section of the loss?
Right. And then if your claims are, you add back the fixed costs. Should I go over this again so it's clearer? Yes? So we took the guaranteed amount minus the fixed cost, which is less the reinsurance and administrative costs to get your loss fund of $142,786.
So that's an option, or that's what you're offering?
That's an option.
That's an option.
So you either have the guaranteed cost, which was on the last page, whether your claims are $5 or $5 million, that's what you would pay. Or then you have the min-max option.
So if you don't like to gamble, you go back to page 23.
That's exactly right. I'm just telling you through the graph, but for the last 10 years, you took a gamble, and it's paid off.
Our luck isn't that good.
You get to choose, you can choose every year, whether you want to be in it or not. So, any other questions, comments?
You mentioned member valued and non-member valued accounts. So you valued all the assets in here other than special items?
Yes.
So is, on the ones that you valued, is that guaranteed value? It comes back, we have to replace something and you undervalued it? Are you covering that cost, or does that go against our max?
We allow you to choose replacement cost, functional replacement, or actual cash value on every single item, every single property that you have. So through the years, that has, that choice has been looked at. What happens, originally when you came in the program, we did a building evaluation on each property, and then every 4 years, we do a building evaluation update to make sure we're keeping up with the property values. And so the ones that are evaluated, meaning this building where you can get a square footage, those are increased every 4 years, if not increased every year at renewal. The other ones, the valued by member, we allow you to put a cost on those based upon your knowledge of, a lift station could be listed for $5,000 or $250,000. So it depends on what type of pump's in it, and you would evaluate that yourself.
Dave, I looked at those numbers today, those are too low.
Okay.
For the stuff that we valued ourselves.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions again? Pat, do you have any? Joe, anything?
Why don't we have the staff prepare an analysis for the next committee meeting of the whole and come up with a recommendation?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
that'd be good, yeah.
Can you, Sherry, sit down and analyze the coverages and tell us what you think? Give it a shot. Okay, so we'll discuss that on what,
December 1.
1st.
December 1st.
What?
I thought you were looking for the date for the committee meeting. I said December 1st.
Oh, is that, I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next regular village board meeting will be December 8th. Anybody have anything else for this evening?
Well, I do want to mention something that I meant to tell the trustees. I showed a couple of guys here, but Dave sent me an email earlier this evening about the minutes. I'm kind of doing a little bit different. If you look on board docs, and they're active, you go to like November 10th. What I essentially do is I expand or enhance the agenda into minutes after meeting. So, for example, if you go to November 10th, you click on that item, public comment is essentially what I put in the minutes. So I end up with the minutes, the agenda of the minutes essentially being one document by the time it's all over with. And I think it's just better to have it there. It's accessible to everybody. Go down here, and again, in public comments, it's essentially what I put in the minutes, but now it's on here with the documents. So I just think it's better. And Elaine can try this too when she gets comfortable with it. You know.
Pat, do you see that being the official record then of your minutes? It's something.
Oh, yeah, once it gets approved, it's approved. This will be it, yeah.
But when you were saying it's essentially your minutes, I wondered if,
Well,
is
it
one
is
going to
the
be the
minutes.
official minutes? Or
once they're approved, this is the minutes.
Okay.
You know, and they can also, of course, be amended like any other set of minutes. This is just a different format. You know, that's all it is. That's
Well,
all
it makes it
is.
easier for the public than to follow.
So, yeah, so it's all in the public content, so everything's there. So, I mean, I apologize for not showing everybody. I meant to send an email last week, but honestly, it just slipped my mind. And Dave, for those of you that read my minutes, so. I know you all do.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting stands adjourned. Happy to take my meeting too.
I know, yes.
No, we're going up north.
Quick update on the train station. The chimney's been tuck pointed, they've stripped the shingles off, put the black paper on. Things are progressing.
I don't know.